So one of the things that immediately comes up when you start writing a web project is, what libraries do I use? Like, besides like implementing your first like small application in Go. So I decided to point you to some interesting libraries that you should look at when you're facing with a specific problem. And also, I also kind of give an overview of some frameworks you might want to consider and whether you should use them. I guess the first kind of distinction to make is what is a library and what is a framework. So library is something you can essentially compose into your existing application, and that doesn't kind of require a specific organization of your code base. Framework instead gives you this template, what you need to fill out to get results, right? In turn, with the library approach, you will get flexibility. With the framework, you get speed of prototyping. So you don't kind of need to reinvent many of those things that people usually do, right? And of course, frameworks usually come with a huge sink of things that you might want to use. Of course, like you might not need to use all of them. And similarly for the library, the issue is there, you need to find the necessary libraries that you want to use. So overall, for long-term maintenance, probably the libraries are going to work better for you because you are not constrained to the framework or the way that the framework wants you to work, right? But for quick prototyping, frameworks probably will give you a leg up, and as long as you know how to use it, the framework effectively. So, are you ready for going over a ton of libraries? Okay. You say it now, but we'll see. Okay. So I guess one of those libraries that you need to use is NetHTTP if you're starting out with a library route, right? There's a great tutorial for writing a wiki system, so yeah, go ahead. So Gorilla Toolkit, it's a fabulous collection of different things that you will need. I won't read them all here, but probably you will find all the basic essentials for writing a web server here. The next thing you might be asking, oh, how do I authenticate people who want to log into my system? There's a golang.org/x/auth2 package, but there's also like this a slightly nicer wrapper around that package that might be nicer to use. Of course, all your favorite cloud providers will have a way to log into their system instead. So, and of course, there's a new KidOnBlock, which is WebAuthn, which does the passwordless login using mobile phones and like stuff. So, which will be cool, or I guess interesting in the following years. The next question is, oh, the user logged in. What can he do, right? Then you will need to implement some sort of permission system and allow like people to do, maybe they can only read stuff, or maybe they can manage people or whatever. So you don't need to re-implement that logic yourself. It's usually very standard. There are a few different approaches for this. Caspin is probably more classical approach, like ACL lists and permissions and stuff. Biscuit is like a more of a decentralized approach for validation, and Open Policy Agent is more like a cloud native thing for permissions. And of course, your favorite cloud provider has everything you need, as usual. Yeah. We covered mostly the database stuff, like use all of these above, additionally to those that Fabiano already mentioned. Avoid these things. Leap PQ is mostly deprecated, but it's still used in many examples, and it has few bugs that you don't want to hit in production. And MongoDB loses your data, so oh well. For database migration, there's Golang Migrate, that's pretty popular. Goose is also popular, both are pretty decent. Or you can write a for loop that does the same thing. There's an example there. It's like a few, maybe 1,000 lines of code, so yeah. Templating, just use HTML template or the safer version listed above. The main reason why you want to stick to that is because it provides extra security guarantees that most templating packages don't. It takes some time to get used to how to use it nicely, but it's probably like you will avoid some of the security concerns by doing so. Oh, also you can set up your templates to auto reload when you change them, so your page refreshes automatically when you change your templates, or yeah, so you don't need to kind of recompile your whole project to get the changes. Logging, yeah, just some packages. They all work fine. Big one. The main thing is don't have a global log variable somewhere and use that. Like that messes up your testing and testing output. So, yeah. Speaking of testing, there are a few helper packages like Mark Dreyer's ease package that help you kind of reduce some of the if boilerplate in your testing code. Similarly, there's a SIBO assert package, which is like shorter, and you can kind of see how you would build your own that's tailored to your needs. For testing command line tools, there's TestScript that you can use to kind of invoke commands and verify that they output the correct thing. There's Docker test that helps you start Docker images for testing purposes. And for end-to-end testing, for kind of integrating with the browser, there's CoRoad. Yeah. For CLI, there's a flag package in the standard library, pretty good. There's SIBO Clingy package, which is nice and minimal. There are Cobra and Urfava CLI, both are really popular as well. I don't personally like those too much because they kind of don't handle contexts really well, so they kind of can be more cumbersome to use as a result. For observability, to get some understanding what your system is doing, there's OpenTelemetry. Like it's a standard, and most different systems integrated with it. So just use that unless you have a really good reason not to use it. For other needs, there's CoKit, mostly for kind of service level or microservice needs, like circuit breakers and stuff. And for security, there's Golang /x/crypto package. However, like if you don't know what to use, then first look into the NACL package, which contains most common needs for your if you like want to encrypt some stuff. And for file encryption, there's Filippo's H package. Dependency injection, yeah, just write the code as Vitali said. But yeah, unless your manual dependency injection goes to like 10,000 lines, then don't worry about it, right? So that's all the libraries. It was this easy. You can later go back to the slides and look over them yourself. And now we go to the frameworks. Gin is pretty popular. It's mostly a convenience wrapper around net HTTP. So yeah, like adds few nicer utilities. Similarly, there's Echo, which kind of adds also similar. It's bright. But it seems a little bit better organized to my eyes, and so. But pretty similar to Gin. For a completely different approach is to define your services in terms of define your service and then generate all the implementations based from it. So there's a CoDesign package. I wouldn't recommend using maybe this directly unless it fits your needs exactly, but you might generate some of your service code or based on definitions if it or write custom code to generate it for you. There's Pico, which is I think it was a Chinese framework, which is popular there. It kind of feels like a PHP MVC framework. I'm not sure whether that's a good or bad thing. But yeah, you write controllers and you kind of wire things up like that, and it works, I guess. In similar vein, there's Rebel, which is kind of a slimmer and leaner version of Pico. There's probably no relation between them, but yeah, it has really excellent examples, and you probably can get something done with it really nicely if you don't want to wire up your own dependencies. There was a really cool project, Ponzu, which did content management systems really nicely. Unfortunately, it's no longer maintained, but maybe there's someone who will write an alternative for it. Finally, not finally, yeah. There's a Micro, which is for writing microservices. It kind of does all the service discovery and all that jazz. So yeah. Buffalo, it has been, or Buffalo has been around for a while. It tries to be Rails and somewhat succeeds in it. But yeah, it has nice features and makes it, yeah. And one of my recent things that look really nice is the Encore. What they have is that they automatically, for example, for this function, they automatically add metrics and logging and tracing and everything into your code base without having to write it yourself manually. And you get automatic tracing, and you don't have to worry about that. This looks like it accesses global things. Actually, under the hood, it actually kind of properly wires up the services. And but it's really cool project, and probably you can with much more ease you can create services that connect to each other. And new KidOnBlock is LivePath, which kind of integrates front ends with a Go server backend. So it's still in development, but you should look at their demos. So do you even need a framework? I thought I'd show a quick example of, if you're starting out, it's completely fine to kind of just YOLO it and just throw everything into a single function and kind of wire randomly things together. But as time goes on, you can start doing things what Vitaly mentioned, is to bring out the repository and then use that in your, I guess, in your server code, and eventually you can separate out the server and kind of wiring up the services, and eventually you can structure those better and kind of introduce an interface, as Vitaly said, and you might even go even more complex and do these, have nested interfaces to kind of provide the functionality that you need. So NetHTTP is pretty powerful by itself already. The main drawback is that you need to know what you're doing, which goes to many things, I guess. But I would say if you're starting out with Go, definitely start with NetHTTP, learn everything there is about it, and then see whether any framework fits your needs. And of course, you cannot go without libraries. It helps you out immensely. And yeah, I guess that's it. So thank you.